Our text for today is taken from 2 Samuel, the 23rd chapter, verses 20 through 23. 2 Samuel, 23rd chapter, verse 20. Benaiah was the son of Jehoiada, the son of a valiant man from Kabzeel, who had done many deeds. He had killed 2 lion-like heroes of Moab. He also had gone down and killed a lion in the midst of a pit on a snowy day. And he killed an Egyptian, a spectacular man. The Egyptian had a spear in his hand, so he went down to him with a staff, wrestled the spear out of the Egyptian's hand, and killed him with his own spear. These things Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, did, and won a name among 3 mighty men. He was more honored than the 30, but he did not attain to the first 3, and David appointed him over his guard. And may God bless and use the reading of his word today. In the little county that I grew up in, there is a bridge over the Tennessee River that connects West Tennessee and Middle Tennessee. And I remember on one occasion as a small child, we're crossing the bridge and I noticed a sign on the bridge. Now this was before I had ever went to school, and it was before Sesame Street. So I couldn't read one word. But I saw this sign and I asked my mom and dad what that sign said. And one of them replied, it says, the Alvin C. York Bridge. Okay, that led to my next question. Who is Alvin C. York? I didn't have a clue. Well, one of them told me that Alvin C. York was a World War I hero from our state of Tennessee, and that to honor him, the state named that bridge after him. And that was the end of that as far as I can remember. But later on, when I did go to school, I learned what Alvin C. York had done and why the state named that bridge after him. I learned that he was the most decorated soldier in all of World War I. I learned that in one day, he single-handedly captured 32 machine guns and 132 prisoners. And by the way, he also killed 20 of the enemy. Single-handedly, one day. To say that Alvin C. York was a valiant veteran would be a very appropriate and accurate statement, to say the least. Well, in our text, we've just read about another valiant veteran from another day and time. And in honor of our own valiant veterans, we want to look at this veteran and see what made him so valiant. First of all, we want to note his courage. In verse 20, we read of him taking on 2 lion-like heroes of Moab. Now, this word for lion-like means they were the 2 best soldiers in all of Moab. They were Moab's finest fighters, their best warriors, and this guy took both of them out. Then in verse 20, we read of him going down into a pit on a snowy day and taking on a real lion, a 4-legged king of the jungle. And then in verse 21, we read of him taking on an Egyptian, a spectacular man. Now that word for spectacular refers to his physical size. And according to 1 Chronicles chapter 11, the man was 7.5 feet tall. And also verse 21 tells us that this Egyptian giant had a spear, while all our man Benaiah had was a wooden staff, which was nothing more than a big stick. And for this man to take on and take down the 2 best men of one country, the best and biggest man from another country, and the best animal out of the entire jungle, while being outnumbered, outsized, and outarmed, shows us that he had courage from the top of his head to the sole of his feet. But in addition to having courage, he also had craft. By craft, I mean ability and skill, knowledge, execution, and expertise. Now, it's one thing to take on Moab's two best men, but it's another thing to take them out. It's one thing to climb down into a pit with a lion, but it's another thing to be able to climb up out alive. It's one thing to take on that 7.5 foot tall Egyptian, but it's another thing to take him down. My point is, Benaiah had to know what he was doing, or he would not have been able to do any of it. If he had not had ability and skill to go with his courage, he could not have taken out these two-legged and four-legged animals. Courage is wonderful, but you better have some craft to go along with your courage. Guts and grit is great, but you better have some skill and knowledge to go along with the guts and grit. Well, this man had it. He had the craft to go with his courage. He had the ability and the skill to go with his guts and grit. And because he did, he left 2 Moabs and 1 Egyptian under the ground, and he left 1 lion under the snow. And now we see the man's consistency for our third point. Over in 1 Kings 1, David's son plans and plots a revolt against his own dad to take away his throne. In 1 Kings 1, we're told that David's son did not ask Benaiah to join him in his revolt against David. Wonder why? He would have been a great asset. So why didn't he even ask Benaiah to join him? I'll tell you why. Because he knew Benaiah wouldn't join him. That's why he didn't ask him. He knew that Benaiah would not betray David and go against him. He knew that Benaiah would stay loyal, true, and faithful to David. He knew that he was wasting his time and breath asking Benaiah to betray David. And how did he know this? Because Benaiah was consistent. He was dependable. He was reliable. He didn't change horses in the middle of the race. He didn't change teams in the middle of a game. He didn't hold his finger up to see which way the wind was blowing. David's son knew there was nothing he could do or say, no bribe he could offer, no threat he could make that would cause Benaiah to betray David. Consistency, dependability, reliability, that is a rare and precious commodity back then and today too. But this man had it, and he had it in spades. And then we note the confidence that was placed in this man. Verse 23, we're told that David appointed him over his guard. Now, which guard was this? Guard his field, guard his garden, guard his tractors and trucks? No. This was his personal bodyguard. Now, who you going to trust your life to? The person you've got the most confidence in. And this is why he appointed Benaiah to be over his personal bodyguard detail. Then in 1 Kings 1, when it came time to anoint Solomon as the new king, guess which soldier David put in charge of the security for the event? Take a wild guess. Our man Benaiah. And then in 1 Kings chapter 2, when Solomon became king, guess which one of his soldiers he appointed commander over his entire army? Take a wild guess. our man Benaiah. You see the confidence David and Solomon and the country had in this man? And for good reason. Because of his courage, because of his craft, because of his consistency, they knew they could depend and rely on this man. They knew that their personal safety and their national security was in good hands, in the hands of Benaiah. They knew when they laid down to sleep that night, they could sleep good because Benaiah was on guard. For you see, he was a valiant veteran in every sense of the word. And once more, we wish to thank our veterans, our Benaiahs, for your service. We thank you for your courage. We thank you for your craft. We thank you for your consistency. And it's because of that that you have our confidence. It's because of that when we lay down in our beds tonight, we can sleep well, can't we? We can sleep well. And without you veterans, that wouldn't happen. So veterans, once again, from the bottom of our hearts, we thank you.